is a lot like Pringles. Once you pop, it's very hard to stop. These are the 5 darkest serial killers. Serial killers will always be fascinating. Death and murder happens all the time, but usually it's motivated by circumstance. Like, hey, you boned my wife, I'm gonna kill ya. But serial killing is much different. Serial killers are a continued mystery, so to make sure I do y'all justice, I'm gonna start a small collection starting now. I'm gonna give y'all a little taste of my favorite serial killers, and in the next 5 episodes, I'm gonna do a deeper dive into each killer, their history, motivation, victims, and conspiracies surrounding each one. Y'all ready for some nightmare fuel? Number 5, Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer terrorized the gay community of Milwaukee from 1978 to 1992, as if being a gay man in the Midwest in the 80s needed to be any more terrifying. I am particularly excited about Dahmer's deep dive episode because his childhood was insane. He was drunk, like all the time. He used to regularly hide whiskey bottles in his locker at school and often blacked out in class. Dahmer was known for stalking gay clubs to find his next victim. He was pretty conventionally attractive, so finding somebody to go home with him was not that difficult. To be honest, I would have gone home with him, but he did not want me because of my vagina. He brought his earlier victims back home to his grandmother's apartment, where he would drug them, strangle them, have sex with their dead bodies, then dismember them so they were easier to get rid of. Who's coming for dinner? His grandmother kicked him out of her apartment for being him, and as you can imagine, things got much worse. Side note, how Dahmer's grandmother never found out what he was doing in her apartment is incredible. If I don't finish a meal at my grandmother's house, she's convinced that I'm addicted to drugs. I'm not, Grammy, I'm fine. Once he got his bachelor pad, he could really have his way with his victims. Again, I'll go into this deeper into Dahmer's specific episode, but essentially he was trying to create a sex slave. He wanted that companionship, but without all that annoying stuff like conversation and a pulse. He drilled holes in their brains to try to lobotomize them, and when that inevitably didn't work because, he didn't understand the intricacies of brain surgery, he would dismember their bodies and eat them. Dahmer was finally caught in 1991 and sentenced to 16 life terms, but was murdered by a fellow prisoner in 1994. Bye. Number 4, the Boston Strangler. Remember how Dahmer killed 16 people in 13 years? Well, the Boston Strangler killed 11 to 13 women in just 2 years. The Strangler had a type. For the most part, he killed women averaging around 50 years old by breaking into their houses and strangling them with their pantyhose tied into an elaborate bow. He targeted women who lived alone, going door to door pretending to be a salesman or a census taker or a Mormon. He would assume any character as long as it was someone you wouldn't think twice about if he knocked on your door. So this one's a little bit tricky. Albert DeSalvo will go down in history as the Boston Strangler, but there's a lot of conspiracy surrounding this. I'll go into the multiple man theories in the later episode, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that DeSalvo is not the Boston Strangler, and personally, I don't think he is. Don't get me wrong, he's a shithead. But his association with the Strangler killing seems to be entirely circumstantial. Objection! Circumstantial! At the same time as the Strangler killings, DeSalvo was having a ball going door to door, breaking into women's houses and molesting them. After assaulting around 300 women, DeSalvo finally got caught, and while incarcerated, he claimed to be the Boston Strangler. He was able to describe the murders in graphic detail, which led police to believe they caught their man. But nothing is ever as simple as it seems, and all humans are liars. A surviving victim of the Strangler told the police that DeSalvo was not her attacker when they brought her in to identify him. She did, however, recognize the man that DeSalvo was speaking to, and that is all I'll say. Oh my God, the drama here is incredible. The conspiracies, and I believe all the conspiracies. I'm a nut. Number 3, Jack the Ripper. I don't know how to shorten this grim tale to just a couple of minutes, but I'll do what I can here. But I will tell you that Jack the Ripper episode is gonna be so lit. Oh fam. Jack the Ripper was a serial killer who targeted poor prostitutes in the late 1800s. As it was the 1800s, women working in the sex industry were seen as subhuman, as opposed to today when they're treated so well. The neighborhood the Ripper worked in was notorious for murder and beatings, and the police were completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of attacks. Generally, the murder of a prostitute was seen as a minor inconvenience, like a parking ticket. But the manner in which the Ripper killed caused the police to go, as opposed to their normal, okay. To be real gross about it, Jack the Ripper would play with their guts. He sliced these women open and removed their organs with surgical precision. The severity and meticulousness of these murders immediately caused controversy. Drama! I love it. The police received a slew of letters from people claiming to be Jack. Over 100 people were named as potential Jacks, which is funny, because I can only name like 3 Jacks. Jack from Titanic, Jack from 24, Jack in the Box.
I don't know any other Jacks.
Yeah, it's gotta be one of them. Yeah. Number 2, H.H. Holmes. There is simply way too much to get into in the story of H.H. Holmes, and if I even begin to tell you about it, I'm not gonna be able to stop, so I'm not going to. I give up. I'm kidding. I will give you a little bit, just a taste, just the tip of the iceberg and the penis. H.H. Holmes was a medical man. A medical man in the 1800s, though. So basically, he played with guts and put leeches on people to see if it fixed their blood. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Practicing surgery on cadavers or dead bodies is pretty common practice, even today. But back then, they were left up to their own devices to find those dead bodies. He would rob graves and eventually decided that he didn't need medical school and he would just practice on his own. Holmes moved to Chicago right before the World Fair, which is like the rodeo, but for the world. Fucking Einstein was there. This thing was a huge deal and people from all around the world came to Chicago to attend. Being the evil genius that he is, Holmes built a hotel right across the street from the fair. Holmes created his hotel, or as it was called, his murder castle, for the sole purpose of killing people. Each room was booby-trapped. Each room had a tunnel that would dump the bodies into the basement where Holmes would experiment on them. Think about it. Tourists are the perfect victims. Imagine trying to coordinate a missing persons case between countries during the biggest event of this time. That's all I'm gonna say in this episode because, like I said, there is way too much to get into right now, but he took incredible steps to make sure that he could continue killing without repercussion for as long as he could. Number 1, Carl Panzram. Carl Panzram is a hedonic, train-hopping murderer, and I am here for it. Yes. I mean, no, but yes. Okay, I feel like I should continually say, I do not condone murder. It's dumb, and I hate it. But I do love a good story, and boy, oh boy, does Carl Panzram give good story. Carl Panzram came into this world a battered mess. At an early age, he was sent to a boys' home, which in the 1900s was code for beat and sodomize your children until they fear God home. Carl did not take too kindly to the constant beatings, so he decided to burn the building down, which is so dope. But all opinions are mine and mine alone, do not reflect Snarled. But if somebody is torturing and sodomizing you, burn down their home. That's fair. Well, in that school, Panzram lost his innocence and his soul, I guess, because he spent the rest of his life exacting his revenge on all men. I'll go deeper into his childhood in Carl's solo episode, but let me tell you, it is darker than almost anything I have ever read or heard about in my entire life. Finally, in 1928, he was arrested for an armed robbery when he decided to let the officers know that he had just murdered 2 young boys as well. Gabbing among gals. They were like, oh, okay, and took him to prison. There, he said, "In my lifetime, I have murdered 21 human beings. I have committed thousands of burglaries, robberies, larcenies, arsons, and last but not least, I have committed sodomy on more than 1,000 male human beings. For all these things, I am not in the least bit sorry." Okay, Carl. All right. That is just the tip of the iceberg with this man, and I cannot wait to tell you more about him. I promise, it's disgusting. For the next 5 episodes, I'll be digging into these folks, looking at their history, their motivation, and their inevitable downfall. And oh my god, is this gonna be fun. So fun! Thank y'all so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, do give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know which serial killer you're most intrigued by. Subscribe to Snarled, watch our other videos, and guess what? We got goddamn merch, y'all. If you follow the link in the description, you can go to snarled.com, buy a poster. Why don't ya? Yeah!